There was just something about this one horse of all of them that just kind of caught my eye, and I ended up adopting him. It took me a long time to get him to turn around physically. There was not much left to him mentally when I got him. And actually, when I got him, I think you could just see his whole body let down. And I remember I just kind of put my arms around him, even though he's smelled and he had rain rot and the whole 9 yards. And his head landed on my shoulder and it just stayed there. It got heavier, heavier, and
Yeah.
and I ended up calling him Teddy because he was just so sweet.
There are healers on this planet with the power to soften the suffering of mankind, yet they have remained in the recesses of the world, abused, discarded, and labeled as trash. This is The Touch of a Mustang. I am your host, Shalise Clough, and I'm here to tell the story of wild horses, Mustangs, and the humans who are discovering and sharing their gifts while working to protect their well-being and preserve their spirit so this divine power won't be lost. Join us on this quest with the wild Mustang.
My name's Cheryl Olsten, and I live in Pennsylvania. I'm a children's book author, children's picture book author, but I've been riding and been around horses forever.
Great to have you.
Thank you.
Tell us a little bit about how you first got involved with horses, how it all started.
Yeah, I wasn't your typical, pony pony child. My father, as a avocation, not as a vocation, was very involved in standardbreds, which are trotters and pacers. There was a racetrack not too far from where we lived, and he got to know some trainers, and he got hooked, as we all do with horses. And so, actually, from the time I was 8 years old, I was going to the track with my dad on the weekends, and it was the back of the track, actually. And the back of the track is pretty eye-opening for a little person. There's a lot going on back there. It's
Yeah.
very different. I don't think I would recommend it. And maybe it's better now, but I don't know that it's better for thoroughbreds or standardbreds, in the scenes that go on in the back. But that's how I was introduced to horses. And we used to go every weekend, whether I liked it or not. And we would also go to breeding farms in Goshen, New York, and that whole area. So that's kind of my introduction to horses. And I can't say I started off with a great feeling about it because there was so much activity that went on behind the scenes, a lot of craziness. But eventually, I learned to really love horses. My father wasn't one that liked to have liked to have his kids be afraid of anything. And so he made sure that I wasn't afraid of horses.
When you're saying you weren't really drawn to them at first, are you saying the stuff that happened with the horses in the back? What are some of those things that you saw that just really didn't sit right with you?
Well, it's not like the grooms that are there or the trainers that are there. I mean, it's a very busy place. I can talk for standardbreds. I don't know about thoroughbreds, but I can't imagine it's that much different. So there was just a lot of, vet stuff going on. There was a lot of, kind of yanking on chains and horses being a little bit more uptight. Standardbreds are not uptight horses. They are the most mellow, sweet horse
Mhm.
ever. Um, and so it was just kind of a frenetic space. And it was just an odd way to be introduced. It wasn't like, here's your pony and isn't it sweet?
Yeah.
Brush your pony. It wasn't that kind of a start. But again, my dad made sure that I wasn't going to be afraid. And I found myself one day in a stall with a horse and the door was closed. And it was the horse looking at me and me looking at the horse on the opposite sides of the stall. And me realizing that the horse wasn't going to do anything to me. And so I think that was kind of being thrown into the pool, more or less, sink or swim. So that's how I got over my fear of horses pretty quickly. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's almost like if I could have known now when I knew then that I could have said to my dad, hey, this is kind of like not a really good space to be in. And I don't really appreciate what's going on with the horses. And do you know what's happening with the horses after they go to claimers and things like that? But, I don't think he had any idea. I think if he knew, he would have not eventually had 25 horses, a lot. He really got into it. But that was my first introduction to being around horses.
And then how did you end up, because eventually you kind of brought them into your life yourself. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so through my dad's contacts at the track, he met someone by the name of Neil Shapiro, who back in the 50s rode for the United States Olympic team. And he was a silver medalist. And my dad, I was probably in my mid-teens when my dad thought it'd be really nice for me to get into riding,
Mm-hmm.
for more than one reason. I was a little bit of a wild child, so he really that would be a good way for me to, gain focus and responsibility and to be around, somebody like Neil, who, wasn't going to take any kind of guff about anything. So I started at his barn, and that's actually where I learned my seat, how to ride.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and so with Neil, because the only horses that were there at the time were his Olympic horses, or maybe one or two others that weren't not in training anymore because he was obviously totally done with that. But he had some beautiful horses; they were pretty amazing. And so I learned on some of his retired Olympic horses.
Wow.
He kept me on a lunge line in the beginning for sure. He wasn't going to trust this person, on his Olympic horses. But I learned really well. I mean, my stirrups were gone most of the time, and sometimes my reins were taken away. So you really got your seat down really well. It was a lot. I mean, it was pretty intense.
Was that a process that was enjoyable for you? Were you still doing it kind of because that's what dad was on your case about?
Um, I at that point, I really fell in love with horses. I mean, I totally got over the whole, track situation, and I totally. I mean, I love animals. Very involved in, all kinds of organizations, and no, at that point, I was totally into the whole idea, and the horses at Neil's barn, which was a small private barn. Honestly, they were like nothing I've had ever seen, and I don't know that unless I went to an FEI kind of a higher level, which I have. I mean, I've gone to a lot of really beautiful, Grand Prix, mostly in the East Coast, but I've never been like up and near them like I was with these horses. They're just magnificent. I mean, they're like
Yeah.
a whole different kind of horse.
And then eventually you got some horses of your own?
I did. Actually, my dad wanted Neil to find me a horse. And the first horse that he had for me was a mare, a thoroughbred mare off the track that was totally green. That was not a good way to start.
Yeah.
I got thrown off so many times. My dad, who really didn't have much time to come and watch me do much of anything, but he came to watch me one day riding this horse. And honestly, I think this horse was part donkey. She didn't have to move. Her back end flipped out. I must have hit the ground 3 times. And the 4th time I was like, I can't. I'm not getting back on. And I walked up to my dad and he was looking at me like, I won't even say what he said. I mean, one of the words was gutsy. But then the next week when I showed up at Neil's, that horse was gone. And a really nice appendix horse was there, a thoroughbred quarter horse cross. And that horse is amazing. I just had the most wonderful time on that horse. And I eventually left that stable, Neil's stable, so I could be at a regular stable with other people and really learn how to ride hunters, which is what at the time I was interested in. And also just, with this horse, I could just trail ride forever. I could do anything with this horse. He was the classic bomb-proof horse of which classic. Nothing bothered this horse whatsoever. He was great. That started my whole positive horse venture. And so over the years, I've been fortunate to have many horses of all different kinds. And up until, I guess, fast forward till the past, I don't know, 10 years, maybe 12 years, I've had horses that I've wanted to use for the derbies, the hunter derbies. And in the past 8-9 years, I've been lucky enough to have a horse that has been really pretty amazing. His name's Lafitte. And when Lafitte came over he's Belgian, but when he came over from Germany, because that's where he was sold, and he came over, I thought there was something really super special about this horse. It was just a feeling. And I decided that whatever prize money he earned, I was going to dedicate it to the Equus Foundation. And the Equus Foundation is kind of an umbrella organization where they work with a lot of small rescues throughout the United States. They highly vet them, and if they pass a certain criteria, they give them money. They help them financially, and also kind of special equestrian type. I mean, there's a broad section, there's a broad range of who they help out. It's not just small rescues. And I had a great conversation with the CEO, the founder, Lynn Coakley, some 8-9 years ago, and I told her what I wanted to do, and she thought that was great. And we decided that, kind of like the tagline would be, well, what I wanted was a horse helping other horses, because just for me to donate money wouldn't be so interesting, but a horse donating money to help other horses just carried a little more meaning. So it turns out that Lafitte has earned quite a lot of money, and a lot of money over the years has been donated to the Equus Foundation, way more than she thought, and certainly.
Yeah.
And I'm super happy
It was
about
a
it.
good partnership.
Yeah, it was a good partnership. It was. And it wasn't until just last year that I told her that I wanted to kind of back off. There was other organizations that I wanted to work with, and I knew that she was slowing down, actually, and was going to be turning the reins over to somebody else.
Mm,
But we very much keep in touch, and Lafitte was their first ambassador, which was really nice. And she kind of
yeah.
used the platform. So it's been great. And a lot of people who know Lafitte know that that's something that we've done. And I've tried to bring that to the forefront so that other riders might think about helping out a lot of these rescues, because a lot of these rescues really, they're scraping by
Yeah.
to take care of the horses and the ones that they can bring in. But as you know, there's just so many horses out there, and just so many rescues that, have the funds and the means to be able to take horses in.
Yeah. It definitely is a difficult endeavor because it is costly and challenging. So that's beautiful the way you were able to give back using your guy.
Yeah, it is extremely costly to bring a horse around. Through another organization that I work with, which is the Standard Bred Rescue Foundation, I ended up rescuing one of their horses. They would post a lot of the horses that you would see on Facebook or whatever, or on their website, that would be at kill pens, where
Yeah.
they say they're kill pens, but Lynn from the Equus Foundation has a whole other viewpoint on that. So these kill buyers, and there was about 70 horses at this one in New Jersey. And there was just something about this one horse, of all of them, that just kind of caught my eye, and I ended up adopting him. And it took me a long time to get him to turn around physically. There was not much left to him mentally. He was just like when I got him.
Mm,
And actually, when I got him, I think you could just see his whole body let down. And I remember I just kind of put my arms around him, even though he's smelled and he had rain rot and the whole 9 yards
mm,
there. And his head landed on my shoulder, and it just stayed there. It got heavier, heavier, and
yeah.
well, and I ended up calling him Teddy because he was just so sweet, even though his race name was Muscle Boy. But it took me a long time to physically get him back in shape. And I didn't think he was going to turn around. And then eventually, I'd say after a good year of trying, he made the turn. He came around, and
Yeah.
his
That's a
body
long,
started. It was a long. So I guess what I'm saying is that not every horse that's rescued, is like ready to go. I mean,
mm-mm.
it's either maybe something mentally or things physically. And it takes a lot of patience, and it takes a lot of dedication.
It definitely can be a long process, whether that's a horse that needs training a lot of times. By the time they get to the auctions or the kill pens, they are not in a great place physically or mentally in a
Yeah.
lot of cases.
Yeah, because they go from one, let's say one, I'll call them a kill pen, but they go from one place to another, one auction to another to another. So if they're sold at one auction, some of them great, but the ones that aren't, they move to another and another. So my horse, Teddy, had all these stickers on his rump of all the different places that he went to, put on by some kind of cement. They're not easy to get off. So they really do travel these horses from one place to another until they get to their final destination. Now, Lynn will say that these kill buyers really play on, you know, on people's on people's psyche, I guess. And
Yeah.
will say that, you've got 48 hours to get the horse, otherwise it's going to Canada or, Mexico. She doesn't feel like they all go. She feels like these kill buyers behind the scenes are trying to sell the horse also because they know that they can make money on these horses. I don't know if that's 100% true. I've never went to these pens to really see how many of these horses are going on the van.
Yeah.
I think that's a bit of an unquantifiable question. I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know about the kill buyers.
Yeah.
They're there for making money.
And a good possibility that there are all different avenues that they go about trying to make that money, whether it is building the prices up so that people are paying more for them or, yeah, threatening with the timeline or, yeah, it is hard to know. It does seem pretty sure thing that money is their primary goal, not the welfare of the horse in any way.
No, and you can say that in a lot of ways that money is the motivating factor at the expense of the animal. Like breeding, I have an issue with people who breed and don't need to. I mean, there's just so many horses out there, and I feel like people they just don't realize that they'll breed all these horses, and a lot of these horses don't make it to where they need to go. They get just so far, and then they end up being the ones that get abused and end up at these facilities. And I just don't think people think that way.
Yeah, I agree. It's definitely an area where those who have horses in their lives could do a little bit better to ensure that horses are coming into lifelong situations, if that's the case, or, you know, not breeding horses. I sadly just saw a list of, 4 mares that were bred that were at an auction and now are at risk when certainly did not need to have those bred and have another horse's life at risk. Yeah.
Want to talk about Mustangs?
Yeah. If you want to
I think
talk about Mustangs, let's talk about Mustangs always.
and that's obviously your love, right? Mustangs.
Yeah. Mustangs definitely got me. Yep.
Yeah. I mean, I haven't had a relationship with a Mustang, so I can't speak to that breed. My only introduction really was that I thought the BLM, Bureau of Land Management, was taking care of these horses naively, like years ago. And then I just happened for some reason to see in the Wall Street Journal or the New York Times this little editorial, and it was actually bashing the BLM because that wasn't what was happening. And I read about these roundups, which I had no idea about. I was under this false idea that they were being responsible. So through the Equus Foundation, I got to talk with I don't remember her name. She has the Rescue Return to Freedom. Are you familiar with Return to Freedom?
Yeah. I bet. Yeah.
And so she's very much an advocate for Mustangs and everything else that's going on. And I did have the opportunity to watch live stream. You can participate a discussion that was going on with the representative from the BLM. And I didn't realize the BLM had so many different levels.
Yeah.
So it's not just horses, it's all kinds of land management.
Hmm.
So the representative for horses for the BLM was on this panel. A representative from the Cattlemen's Association was on this panel. A representative from either the ASPCA or the Humane Society. It's been so long, I don't remember. And a veterinarian, and one other person. So there was a discussion with all of them. Basically, what this person from the BLM was saying is that they're underfunded, and that there's just so much. They don't have the resources, either monetarily, or they don't have the humans to be able to deal with what was going on. And so, yes, it fell through the cracks and it got out of control and they didn't manage it properly. That's exactly what he said. And so that's, that points to obviously the government, the fact that there was such a shortage of people in that department. They just couldn't keep up with it.
Yeah, it absolutely is a very multifaceted issue and complex. And the way the way that it is being done is not something that is going to change the situation. Horses cost a lot. They're caring for tens of thousands of Mustangs that have come off the range and trying to find adopters. And these Mustangs, they're not the horse that you bring home and jump on and it takes you on any trail ride. It is a really long process if you get an untouched Mustang, and can certainly have a lot of implications. A lot of times you need to work with them a little bit differently than you would a domestic horse. They're much more aware. Their fight or flight is also often much more engaged than it might be with a domestic horse because they have, fought for their own survival through fleeing scenes that scare them and through, fighting when necessary. So, yeah, it is a tricky situation for sure. And sadly, there are a lot of Mustangs that end up in the same situation where they're in auction houses and nobody wants a horse that you can't do anything with. Not nobody. A lot of people do not want a
Right,
horse that you
right.
can't do something with right away. And so they're certainly at risk, as well as sadly many domestic horses. So it is
Yeah.
a sad situation.
But there is also in the discussion, that panel discussion, where they were saying that there's the populations are so vast that there isn't enough food out there or water sources. And so that they really had started to see horses that were dying, out there because there just isn't enough to forage on. And, that's an issue also.
Yeah.
Mm. What do you do about all the horses and the overpopulation that hasn't been controlled humanely, properly, whatever you want to, however, um, through sterilization, which obviously would have been the best way to go. And now, there's just so that was a problem also. Not enough area to graze on, not enough to forage on.
Yeah, that's definitely a reality that anyone who cares about Mustangs needs to be aware of, is that the land they're on can't always take care of all of them. And it's tricky to know when that's the case. And people are obviously making those judgment calls. So yeah, it's a complicated issue for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I know someone who lives outside of Reno. I don't know what area exactly, but she's had horses come on her front lawn because they've had to travel, a distance to be able to find, um, yeah, grass, something to forage on. So they're kind of, moving off where they shouldn't be. And, then they get into areas where it's, traffic and population. And that's been not a good scene.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think, the more people who can come together, and regardless of what they think is best, the more that we can come together all for the welfare of the horses. I think there are a lot of people that come up with good solutions. There's some herds that are managed pretty well,
Hmm.
and often with a lot of volunteer hours, people who aren't getting paid that are going out and just doing things to help the horses. So, yeah, it is a tricky tricky issue. They're at risk in the wild to some extent, and they're at risk once they enter human hands to some extent.
Slippery slope there. It's a difficult one to manage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's sadly no clear, easy answers. I know some people say just leave them free, and certainly we can, but there's going to be consequences there as well because they do reproduce quickly and they do require land. And so, yeah, it's a hard one.
It,
There's a
I
lot
mean,
of people working for solutions, but I don't know that there is one clear solution that would just fix it all. It's going to be a process for sure to make it better.
we kind of wish there was. I mean, I don't know if it's through Return to Freedom or something where there were volunteers that were going out with, these sterilization guns that have like
Hmm.
whatever these dart guns were, and they'd try and, sterilize these horses. I mean, you'd be doing that forever. And,
Yeah.
it's a nice thought. I don't think that they got very far doing it, but, I mean, it's just, I don't, no one's come up with the end all be all answer to it, except for people to be more aware, uh,
Yeah.
in all disciplines,
Yeah.
all
I do
disciplines.
think awareness is huge, and also just realize, like, yes, if you get a Mustang, it's not going to be a horse you jump on and trail ride and can do competitions on right away or necessarily ever, but they certainly do have value if you bring one into your life. And I do think that's one of the greatest protections for a Mustang if they can find a good committed home. That horse, that's their best path to safety.
Yeah,
Um, but obviously that's a big prospect when there's 50, 60,000 in holding right now.
that's amazing that there's so many. So that's kind of my, my journey with horses. Lafitte's kind of been very inspiring in many levels. My standardbred that I've rescued, Teddy, is incredible. Standardbreds have been known to be incredibly level-headed horses, very sweet, and he's all that. I can attest to rather the fact that they're really, really, really sweet horses. And he loves going out on trail rides. He's never done anything silly. I mean, you can just hug him as much as you want to hug him. Lafitte, maybe not so much.
Yeah.
But for sure, standardbreds are really sweet horses. And, I know there's lots of breeds that are sweet horses.
Yeah.
Just talking about, the two different ones that I have that are vastly different. I do as much as I can for the Standardbird Rescue Foundation. I used to do a little bit for Return to Freedom, but if I find an organization that I think is really worth getting involved in and donating to, I do. For sure. I think is it Monty Roberts who's out in California that has this amazing facility. Are you familiar with him?
I am familiar with him. I do feel like he's in California. Don't know
He
much
is
about his facility.
he is in California. I haven't been to his facility. It's just that I know he does many things, and I think he's almost 90 years old, which is
Yeah.
but what I had wanted to look into what I was searching for was a um, a place that works with post-traumatic syndrome. Some of the things that I've seen and how people have reacted with horses in that way is just so valuable. I know that there have been some prisons that have tried, that. I don't know how successful that has been. And certainly I have seen where children who maybe are autistic or have other challenges or who have never said a word and sat on a horse and felt a horse move have actually uttered like their first sound. I see what the benefits are of and know what the benefits are of horses and humans and what they can do. And so I've been looking for um, organizations that I could really help promote in that way because that's huge.
Yeah.
And, the horse doesn't have to be ridden, just work with them on the ground and learn how patience is huge, how you have to learn patience and you have to learn trust. And just their whole persona just kind of enters into your bloodstream. It just gets into you. And
Yeah.
It's great. I mean, it's really great. I've had people who don't know so much about horses actually look at it as a sport for like the elite. And it's not. It's not at all. You know, you can get involved in any way that you want to. You can go to a local rescue and help horses at a local rescue if you want to be around horses, or just go to a barn and help. There's so many ways that you can get involved with horses. It's not elitist at all. Yeah. Are there elitist areas? Sure.
Yeah.
But it's open to anyone who wants to get involved.
Yeah, absolutely. And I have a lot of people who will often comment, I wish I had horses in my life. And really, everybody, I think, that wants an opportunity, there's probably a rescue or an organization or a barn near you that would let you interact with their horses, whether that's through volunteer service or something more formal. There are lots of opportunities to just even be around a horse without necessarily taking them into your home and owning one. And yeah, like you say, there's a lot of great organizations doing really good work where horses are helping humans. It's not a competition thing, it's not a private ownership thing, where people are just able to be in the presence of a horse, and absolutely amazing, incredible things happen through all kinds of programs like that. And one thing I hope and see as a real possibility is if we can come to value horses for that, that will really increase their safety levels once people know like there is this other avenue that you have towards healing or skill progression that involves a horse and is really effective.
It is. It is very much so. I would like to think that, you know, people can kind of maybe get past certain stigmas, but um, I guess just what I've seen and me personally, with horses that I've had and how they have sensed certain things with me and really made such a huge difference. Yeah, I mean, I have MS, and it's remitting and reoccurring. So luckily, it hasn't reoccurred in a while.
Oh,
But
yeah.
I had one of my horses. Well, I had to stop riding for a while because of that. But when I was ready, one of my horses that was at the time, he was 17 two hands.
Wow.
People, the big guy,
Very
and
big.
and he was at a stable, a show stable. Um, and she had a lot of horses. She had like 35 horses at the stable. And I wanted to get to know a little bit about this horse I was about to get. And I asked the barn manager, and he said, well, she's got 35 horses, and he's number 35. Basically, he was not, he, he didn't get any attention at all. And so when he came to me, I can see that he too had kind of like this blank sort of, had
Shut down maybe.
shut down kind of an expression. I mean, basically, he was fed. I mean, that was, you know, it. He didn't get any attention. So he and I were paired together, and that was probably good because I think he was looking for a partner, and I needed a partner. And he knew as we got to know each other and ride a little bit, he knew for sure that there was something wrong with the rider on his back. Absolutely. And he took care of me. Mm, he took care of me. It I'm about to cry. If it wasn't for this horse, I don't know that I would have progressed as quickly as I did.
Wow. What an absolute just godsend, that to have this horse into your life at that time.
Yeah, it was huge. He lived to, 35 years old. I got him as a 14-year-old.
Wow.
He lived to 35 years old. He just passed away 2 years ago. He ended up having, I mean, I retired him anyway. I wasn't gonna keep riding him forever. I retired him pretty early. And I ended up sending him to a really, really, really lovely stable that only has 8 horses. It's run by these ex-thoroughbred trainers, and, they're just the best people in the world, and they've taken care of a couple of other horses of mine, but only 8 horses, and these horses just got the best care. They're so well loved, and, um, she in particular knows how to if there's something wrong, she's on it. If there's a problem, she sees it before it even happens. So, I mean, his name was Squeeze, Main Squeeze, and,
Aw,
um, Squeeze, he didn't really have any problems per se. It's just that he's a big guy and, just a lot. But, she took such great care of him, and, when it was his time to go and he just really couldn't stand up anymore, that's when, we put him down, but he had an amazing, I mean, everyone said he landed on his feet when he found me. Be
yeah.
I took such good care of him.
What a beautiful two-way benefit that you were able to help him and give him this good life and good home, and he was able to help you with your situation, what you were in. Do you feel like your experience with him, did it help you mentally? Was it physically, both?
Mental and physical for sure. Because when I got back on him, I didn't realize that there were some things that hadn't come back for me, motor skills, especially in my legs. I thought my motor skills definitely hadn't come back. So that was, kind of an awakening. But definitely mentally and physically, it was a game changer for me. And we would go out on trail rides and we would go like forever. And, there were times where he had every reason to spook, because you're out there and, there was times when like a mother deer and her babies would be coming running at us and the mother deer is freaking out and the two babies because they're such a big guy they would actually run under my stirrups, but
Oh
he
my
was totally
goodness.
fine with it. Or Canadian geese would flush out of, a cornfield, and there were times when he would jolt and I would lose my seat, but he would stop. I'm telling you, he would turn around and he'd look and he'd wait to make sure I was back in the saddle before we kept going. So
Wow.
he was also, a one in a million and there's lots of them out there. He's not the only one. I mean,
Yeah.
horses are so attuned to people and their partners if they're taken well care of and
Mhm.
they trust you. Like
Yeah.
any, like anything.
Yeah, and that's what I was gonna say. Did you see in your situation that a lot of that reflected your care for him, and then he in turn kind of had that space to also care for you?
I'm sure, you build that bond. I don't think that if we had that bond, it wouldn't have come through for him. Um, I don't know. It's hard to say, if he had been a horse that would have been used for, people with special needs, would he have been? I mean, they wouldn't have used him anyway because he was so darn big.
Yeah.
But uh,
Would have been hard to
it would
get
have,
people up there.
yeah, or it's kind of hard to know. I think that it was really our the bond that we grew together and the time that we spent together. And I would go there every day after work. And on the weekends, and yeah, I mean, sure, he felt all the love, absolutely.
What was that like for you? Because I imagine if you're having physical problems and challenges, was that scared for you to restart and get up on this huge horse? Um, how was that process? Almost rebuilding trust in yourself with him by your
Yeah.
side.
I think when he was brought to the stable, I was just like, "You've gotta be kidding." I mean, this guy is just so big, and the person that a trainer that, I knew and I totally trusted, she was just like, "Don't look at his size. He's completely fine. I know it'll be good." And we started off in a ring and, kept it very small until I started to realize that, it was all good. And the more time I spent around him and the more I saw how gentle he was and, it happened pretty quickly, really. The bond and the trust came along pretty quickly. I mean, with any animal, whether it's a dog, a cat, or whatever it is, if you're going to build that trust or not.
That is a really incredible story. And kind of like you said, he was very special, but there are also a lot of really special horses that have been able to interact with humans in that way and be a bit of their caretakers, be aware of them and be able to help them in the same process.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I think, having gone through that myself and seeing what the benefits are, I mean, you also see where, people bring mini horses into hospitals and into nursing homes. And you see how people react. I mean, it's just incredible to see how people just kind of open their hearts and feel so good about having to be able to have this little mini horse or whatever it is, come to them and they can pet them and see how gentle they are. I mean, it's a different experience than just bringing. I love dogs, but it's a different experience to bring a dog in because everyone's used to a dog. Um, they're not used to a horse. There's a different there's a different connect.
I agree. And just another example of simply being in their presence. You're not necessarily doing anything with them other than maybe petting them and being around them, but just having that presence can really affect the peace that you have, your mental state of mind. So it's really incredible to see. There's definitely lots of good organizations out there and hopefully more to come, more people that are recognizing this and can help horses and humans at the same time, because I agree it's a really powerful combination.
It is. It is a powerful combination. And I think that would be just, huge if people could, I don't want to say use because use isn't a good word, but see the benefits, like you said, and be able to put more of those organizations together. They're not even, any of these rescues that do a lot of that. Yeah, if more of those were around, it would be super for everybody.
I think even your example with Teddy, that you were able to rescue him and he turned into a great partner
Hmm.
for you. I think a lot of times people steer clear from the ones that aren't guaranteed. And the reality with horses is like nothing's guaranteed until you have them in your care and you're, looking at the interaction between the two of you. There aren't guarantees. So it is a bit of a more risky prospect to maybe get a rescue or get a Mustang or get a horse that has had a different career first. Um, but, if you take that risk, a lot of people have found really, really great partners that also really appreciate what they give to them as a human to the horse.
Sometimes you get lucky, like you said, right off the bat. And you'll have one that you don't have to do much work with. Then there are those like Teddy, that went from, one kill place to another that, does shut down and does take a little more work and obviously has more physical issues. But in the end, it's rewarding in a lot of ways. You've given, this animal a new lease on life and it makes you feel really good. Feel good knowing that you've been able to help this animal turn the corner, but you have to be willing to do it.
Yeah, and it's not without work, it's not without cost, but it is good investment if it's something that you're willing to do and have that commitment.
Yeah.
What are some things you think horse owners could do to maybe change the state of the horse world for the better? Because a lot of horses are ending up in bad situations, and ultimately organizations can do stuff, but they're limited in their resources. I really think it's going to take the entire equestrian world to make it a little bit better. What are some things that you see would really help the situations that we're seeing?
I awareness. I feel like people are so busy in their own day-to-day lives, and I think that no one really, maybe you're kind of aware, but you're not totally aware, or maybe you just don't have the time or you think somebody else is taking care of it. I know that the Equus Foundation really tried to get a lot of riders involved and understand what was going on out there. I don't know how successful that was. Quite frankly, I just think that it's just awareness, and I don't know. I mean, everyone's just so busy and doesn't take the time, and they don't realize really what's going on. I think a lot of people are really naive to what's going on. Um, and so there isn't those 6 different things that one can say to help people be more aware, try and fix or find the solution, because I listen to, other people and other people that are bringing horses over from Europe all the time, selling them, training them, selling them, and then they go from one owner to another. And even though they think, well, I'm bringing them over and putting all this time into them and I'm going to sell them for a lot of money and then this person's going to take good care of them. You don't know. There's no guarantee. You don't know how somebody's life is going to go. It's just if somebody wants to really take the time to be aware of, what's happening.
I think the more that just people who are aware of it can talk about it and bring a little bit of it to light, what happens when you do rehome a horse, that it's, there are no guarantees unless they are really in your care. And just being aware of all the different ways that good horses can come into your life also. I think it doesn't have to be one that's just had 90 days of training. You can learn what that horse needs and how to interact with it, and that can be a really good thing also.
Yes, but unfortunately, it kind of is what it is. And, shows like yours, to be able to get the message out is huge. And, that's a great way, obviously. Um, but I think it's just humans.
I think the issue is so big that we're never going to completely solve it, but I think there is real value in if there's one horse that you take into your life and change like you did with Teddy, like there is real value in that for both parties, both the human that decides to do that and for the horse that obviously is saved from some of the darker places that humans can sometimes put them.
Yeah.
Every single horse that's saved, that is a huge success, a huge victory.
You want to do more, and it's just like sometimes you just can't,
Yeah. And also another really important thing, because if you do take on too many, then, if it's taking horses into your home or whatever it might be, if you take in too much, that certainly can also put animals at risk. So
Yeah.
it is a really careful balance, and a really tricky situation, but hopefully, more will be placed in a better position in their lives.
Yeah. We all keep trying, and
Yeah.
we all have voices, and those that are going to keep at it.
And I think that is what is best. If everyone can help in their capacity where they're able to, whether that's donating money, volunteering at a rescue,
Mhm.
sending feed to someone who's taking care of horses. There's so many different ways, and each one of those does make a difference in the end.
It does. For
Yeah.
sure.
Tell us about your children's book and some of your writing.
I have 4 books that are out. 2 actually, well, the first one, Big Wishes for Little Feet, was inspired by Lafitte. That was about a little girl in the States and a little horse, over in Belgium, because Lafitte was born in Belgium. The story just sort of unfolds about how she ends up having to go over to stay with her aunt over in Europe, and she's very lonely. And this little horse that is at the show stable, and all these horses are being sold except for him because he's small and Lafitte is small, and how he's feeling because he's, been rejected so many times, and how she's lonely. And anyway, the story comes together where they're introduced to each other. And again, it's the bond that they form and how they grow from each other and the strength that they get from each other. And my books always speak to perseverance. I'm really big on perseverance. And so my books are always about overcoming challenges and perseverance and always happy endings. And so that was really how Big Wishes for Little Feet, because he had a big wish that he would meet his person. And then I had written some other books that don't have anything, children's picture books that don't have anything to do with horses. And then I recently, it's not released yet, called My Lucky Star, which is kind of a sequel to Big Wishes for Little Feet. Again, that's just about the journey that she's on that continues. But it's been, he actually, so I guess like you could say, I mean, I've always been involved in publishing, but really, if it wasn't for Lafitte, I might not have written that first book and become a children's picture book author. I've had translation rights to my other books. One of my other books sold to China and to Greece, which has been kind of fun. I'm breaking into the UK market, which has been really interesting and different. So it's taken me on a completely different path. So thank you, Lafitte, for, everything that you did for the Equus Foundation and me going on this new path of writing children's books, which I absolutely love. Yeah, it's been a great journey.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that is wonderful. And another way to bring horses into life, especially of children, the next generation that are going to be coming up and having the welfare. And I think it's just a testament to how horses can impact us so much. I mean, you shared 3 horses, all that had very powerful, like they did really powerful, important things in their lives, because they were able to be cared for by your hands. And how fun for kids to now come into that experience a little bit for themselves and to hopefully catch the magic, catch the horse bug,
Yeah.
and go on to help keep these animals as part of our lives, because there's something really spectacular about them. tell everybody where they can find you, find your work, if they want to get in touch with you, any of those things.
Sure. Thank you for asking. Well, I have a website where all the books are, and there's trailers on the website, and it's just my name, CherylOlsten.com. So that's easy. My books are on Amazon, and they're in bookstores, and they're in Barnes and Nobles here, and in the UK. Not too long from now, they'll be on the UK Amazon and in bookstores over there. If you go on Amazon and Google my name or look for Big Wishes Lafitte or My Lucky Star, it'll all come up, and it's all on my website as well.
Yeah, super fun. Great gift if anyone has kids that they're looking for. It has a cute little trailer that just made the whole book sound so magical and fun. Made me want to be a kid again. Sit down with a book and just get lost in another world. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for the advocacy you do through your books and through helping organizations that are really working to help horses. And it was great getting a chance to talk with you today and to especially learn about the special horses that have entered your life. So thank you a lot.
Yeah, well, thank you very much.
Thank you for joining us and learning about horses that heal and the humans who help them. We hope you'll continue with us on this journey. We'd love for you to subscribe on your favorite platform and follow The Touch of a Mustang on any of the major social media outlets. Please share with your friends, anyone who loves horses, or anyone who might be struggling and could benefit from this message. If you have felt the healing power of horses or help them in their divinely appointed mission, please reach out. We want to hear your story. As we say goodbye, always remember that the horse is always there to help you heal.